All right. So, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us through online, and we hope and pray that we could all do the program very soon in person. Let's hope for that. And yes, so before I introduce Venerable Jamyang, I have few housekeeping things to make you all aware of. As you all are notified that all the sessions, the entire session will be recorded. So just to make you all aware, and the recording will be shared with only people who are registered for the course. So, like the question answer session, the teaching session, everything will be recorded so that all of you are aware that these are recorded. And as you can see, your microphones are muted. It will remain like that until if we come to question answer session. So when the question answer session comes, then we will unmute you, so you can speak at that time. And you can send, if you have any question that comes to your mind, then you can either send it to me, register to Shita, I'm the host, or to Venerable Jamyang. And you can also ask question in person. So you can, if you have question, you can raise your virtual hand. There is a tiny virtual hand there. You can raise your hand, raising hand when we come to the question and answer session. And that's all that I have. And then we have Venerable Jamyang, originally from Netherlands, and she was ordained as a Buddhist nun a while ago and did her basic program for 5 years in Genetic Institute, and then master programs in Lama Tsongkhapa Institute, and completed that in 2017. And then since then, Venerable has been teaching in various FPMT centers around the world. And Tushita was fortunate enough to have Venerable Jamyang as a visiting teacher since 2018, if I'm not wrong. And so Venerable Jamyang is also physiotherapist by profession and also does Thangka painting. She has been doing Thangka painting for many years. So Venerable Jamyang, thank you so much for kindly accepting us to this course. So welcome, and yeah, I think I can give it to you now.
Thank you very much, Pema. And thank you to Tushita for having me. There are so many courses at the moment online of so many fantastic teachers, that it is great to have the opportunity to be part of that. So welcome everyone. Very nice to see you. I know some of you, I don't know everyone, but that's cool. So we're gonna talk for 2 weeks about discovering your true nature. And so we have 10 days of 1.5 hours each. And I thought to teach for 45 till 50 minutes, and then have some time for question and answering, maybe 10, 15 minutes, and then do a meditation together. If it's supported teachings, I might also ask questions during the teachings, or sometimes I might do a poll to check where you guys are at. And so if that happens, we use the chat. I don't think we go to live questions, but you can put the questions in the chat. Yeah, I don't think, do I have to say anything more to start?
No, I think that's kind of it.
We can start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So maybe before we start, we do a very short meditation to calm the mind and to bring the awareness to the body, so that we can focus the mind really well on what is said, and also, it can help us to adjust the motivation. And so the first day I will do a little bit more explanation on, because it's a Buddhist course, on how to take refuge, what we are taking refuge in, because that is very relevant to how we, it is very relevant when we think about discovering our true nature. Okay, so find a good posture that is suitable for a meditation. It is a short meditation, only a couple of minutes. So if you can make sure that your back is straight, whether you sit on the chair or the couch or the floor, that's all fine. But try to keep your back straight. If that's not possible, sit in a relaxed way. Relax your shoulders. Do a quick scan through your body, and if you feel that there is some tension, try to release it. And then when you have scanned through your body, focus on your breath by observing the rising and falling of your abdomen. When we bring the mind to the body or to the breath, we bring the mind automatically to the present moment. And when the mind is in the present moment, delusions naturally subside. So when we focus on the body or the breath, the mind naturally calms down. And then try to set a good motivation for doing this course, for being here today. And you can, for instance, do that by thinking that the sole purpose of any benefit that is going to come from listening to and reflecting on this course for myself will help me to develop my full potential of wisdom and compassion. The sole purpose of that is that I can be of the greatest benefit to all sentient beings. Whatever we learn, we give it away straight away. We don't hold on to it thinking this is mine. Whatever we learn, we dedicate to the benefit of all suffering sentient beings. And then, having such a precious motivation in mind, we think about our refuge. And in Buddhism, we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So, if we reflect on the meaning of this, then what we are saying that everything we do is in order to develop our potential of wisdom and compassion. And we have that potential in us, seated at our heart. We also call that Buddha potential. And when we take refuge in the Buddha, we take refuge in the outer representations of the Buddha. But the main refuge is our own Buddha potential, our own Buddha nature. We can take refuge in the Buddha that we are going to become. You can also call that your potential for wisdom, your potential for compassion for all sentient beings. That potential is our main refuge. And when we take refuge in the Dharma, we can think of Dharma as all the scriptures and the teachings that help us to connect with and develop this potential. But the main Dharma refuge is the realizations in our own mind. Any realization, no matter how small, even any virtuous actions that we are doing, becomes a refuge, a safe haven. And when we take refuge in the Sangha, we take refuge in all those who support us on the path, including those that have the realizations in their mind and are wonderful role models for us, like our teachers. And we take refuge so that we are able to develop all our qualities, all the perfections. And we do that so that we can be of greatest benefit to all sentient beings. And then relax the mind, open your eyes. So sometimes when we listen to teachings, the mind starts to wander off and start to think, and sometimes it's too much. We can't hold on. So if you find yourself in such a situation, just bring your mind back to the body. Bring your mind back to the breath. And then when you feel ready, start listening again. It's not a problem if you miss certain certain things that have been said. You will get it in another way, or you listen later again to the teachings, or it will come back to you later in another form. So today is the first day of a 2 weeks long inquiry about our true nature. So we're going to look at the nature of the mind from different angles, and we will discuss why it is so difficult to discover our true nature. And I also hope that I can give you some tools in where to look for your true nature, how you recognize your true nature. What I'm saying now, it's not that I know that, but I've heard some things that I'll repeat to you. One way of discovering our true nature is also discovering what your true nature is not. So in that, I do have a little bit of experience. So in this course, I would like to touch on, first of all, the way we relate to ourselves when we engage in the journey of discovering our own true nature. So we will look, for instance, in the motivation that brought us onto the path. And often is that also the motivation with which we keep engaging in practice. So what kind of attitude will help us to progress on the path in a healthy way? How can we do that? Sometimes we're too harsh on ourselves. Sometimes we are not disciplined enough. How do we relate to ourselves so that we create conditions that are very suitable to progress on the path? So that I want to discuss tomorrow. And then on the next day, we're going to talk about what obscures us from seeing our true nature. Right? We talk about my true nature, but where is it? What is in the way? And so we will talk about our ignorance and the delusions that arise from our ignorance. And in particular, we will talk about the grasping at that inherently existent self, that we believe it exists, but in actuality, it has no existence at all. And so that grasping at that self, that is the root of samsara, it is the root of all our suffering. And without that, delusions cannot arise in the mind. So it is very important to have some idea what that self-grasping mind really is. On the basis of that self-grasping mind, then we develop all kinds of wrong beliefs. We create onto beliefs about ourselves, about the world, about life, about others, and they're all coming from our attachment or our aversion, but also just not being able to see the nature of reality. And so then when we, on the basis of that belief, or on the basis of our beliefs and our delusions, especially if we repeat them again and again, we start to create a personality, we start to create our character. And so they become so much part of us that we might not be able to think, what am I without that? Right? This is so typically me. I cannot envision who I would be without that. So that prevents us also from seeing the true nature of the mind, the true nature of ourselves. Right? We believe that something is truly us, but in actuality, it is just a collection of beliefs or delusions that haven't been processed properly. Right? So we're going to look into that. Sometimes we have traits that we have pushed away, that we have forgotten about, or we deny that we have them. Maybe guilt, maybe shame. So what do we do with that? If we do not really look at that, they prevent us from seeing the nature of our reality. They prevent us from seeing our own true nature. and also the nature of reality. And sometimes we have very difficult traits that are so difficult that we feel like, I cannot cope with that, you know, I just cannot be with that. For instance, if you suffer from depression, if you maybe have a lot of anger that you don't like about yourself, or resentment, and so you push that away, like, oh no, I don't want to look at that. That's you feel that is a bad part of you, and you cannot do anything with that, and people don't like it when you show it, and so how do we deal with that? How can we be with that so that it doesn't become an obstruction for discovering our true nature? And so from there we go to the nature of the mind, the true nature of the mind. And first we have to think about, what does it mean to be true? So we will talk about that. And then we'll talk about the ultimate nature of the mind and the conventional nature of the mind, and how we use both within meditation when we meditate on the nature of the mind. Right? Are we meditating on the ultimate nature of the mind? Are we meditating on the conventional nature of the mind? And how do we do that? What are we looking at? And what can we see? So then from there, we're going to talk about how we normally behave. And behave, I mean our reactive behavior. You know, any unpleasant feeling that arises in the mind, I react with aversion. I don't like it. I want to get away from it. Any pleasant feeling that arises in the mind, I want to have more. So attachment follows that feeling. And if we check, feelings arise in every moment of mind, pleasant, unpleasant. And our mind reacts every moment with attachment, aversion, or ignorance. Right? And then we think about that. But that reactive behavior is actually what determines what we are doing. It actually determines our choices in life. And according to Buddhism, that is an emotional behavior. There is no light of wisdom shining in that. Right? And we are so used to that maybe you think now, so what's wrong with that? It always has served me. So what's wrong with that? So we will talk about how that behavior is obscuring the true nature of our mind. How that behavior is preventing us from developing our qualities. And I will also try to talk about what alternative we have. How can we do things differently so that we are not so caught up in that reactive behavior? And then from there we go to our delusions, how we can recognize our delusions. Our delusions, they appear as our best friends, right? They're dressed up like best friends. They're there to help us. They are dressed up as our protector. They're dressed up as, you know, something that without that we cannot really function in life. So how do we recognize attachment, aversion, and the other delusions? And why are they not our friends? Right? They appear like that. And so we follow them and we believe in them. But why are they not our friends? What are they actually doing? And what is our alternative? Right? We need an alternative. We cannot just say, oh, that doesn't work, but I have nothing else. There must be something else that we can use, which is much healthier and much better, not better in the sense of more beneficial for us to adopt than the delusions that we have at the moment. And then you might say, but there is something good in delusions. You know, it is like my attachment tells me what I need. And my anger is helping me to set boundaries. And my anger lets me know when something is not right. And so in a way that is true. But maybe we can find another way of relating to these messages that attachment and anger represent. right? It is not, they're just representatives. So how can we listen to what they have to say to us without indulging in the delusions? And then from there, we're gonna go to how can we be with our mind without following our delusions, without following that self-grasping mind? How can we be the observer? And when we are the observer, what actually happens in the mind? Why is that so beneficial to practice that? And then we go to day 8. We will talk about developing the heart, how to develop bodhicitta. And I think during the course, we will already have touched that. So I will give you the essence of bodhicitta, because we can do 10 days on bodhicitta alone, but we can also make that a little bit shorter. And then day 9, we will talk about developing the mind, understanding the nature of reality. And then we will talk mainly about how do we go about from where we are now to developing that wisdom mind that realizes the nature of reality. How do you do that? Where do you start, and what are the steps that you take? And then day 10, I'm not yet sure what we're going to do there. I thought that is the day for the sponsors. I thought, you can come with ideas if you have ideas. You can send them to Shita, or maybe put them in the chat. I can read it later. So you can let me know what you would like me to discuss, and I'm sure otherwise I will come up with some ideas. I had an idea this morning, and I thought, oh, maybe we can talk about how we can take care of the body, living the life in this age is not so easy for the body, right? We are not living in a very pure environment. We are confronted with lots of toxins. What do we do with that? How do we relate to that? How can we take care of ourselves so that we don't experience too much negative influence from that? But that's just an idea, I'm very happy with whatever you want to come up with. All right, so that is a little bit what I want to go through in the next 10 days. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the mind. What is the mind? What is the true nature of our mind? And so we set out on a spiritual journey because we want to wake up to our true nature, right? Spiritual journey is about waking up. It's not so much about becoming a good person. It's not so much about I want to change, but it is about I want to wake up. I want to understand. I want to know. I want to see. Right? We want to remove that ignorance. We are somehow aware that the way that we are acting or reacting is not really beneficial, but we cannot see something. I don't really understand why this is happening. And so this is what we want to see. We want to see the reality as it is, whether that is conventional reality, whether that is ultimate reality. And the better we can see reality as it is, the less we get caught up in that net of delusions that we have. The antidote to the delusions is knowing reality as it is. Right? The antidote to delusions is not being a good person. So the better we know reality as it is on both levels, ultimate level and the conventional level, then instead of creating the causes for samsara, we can start creating the causes for liberation from samsara. We can start instead of creating the causes for suffering, we can start creating the causes for happiness. We can start creating the causes for going beyond the happiness and suffering of samsara. Okay. So when we talk about discovering our true nature, then we are talking about the true nature of the mind, right? Not the body. You all got that, right? So the essence of our mind, according to Buddhism, is by nature pure. By nature pure means that the essence of our mind is completely free from stains and delusions. If anger were to be part of our nature, then the essence of our mind should be made out of anger. If attachment were to be part of the nature of our mind, then we should be able to find attachment in the essence of our mind. But there is no attachment, no anger, no delusions, no conceptions, no thoughts, totally pure. So let's talk about the mind. What is the mind in Tibetan Buddhism, so that we are all on the same page with respect to that? The mind, the definition of the mind is that which is clear and knowing. That which is clear and knowing. Clear means it has no color, it has no shape. It is like space. It has no form. It is like space. So the mind is not a material substance. It is the energy of thought or the energy of consciousness. So we have two types of energy: the material energy that the body is made up of, and then there is the consciousness, which is the mind. These are two different types of energies that meet in beings that are alive, right? Human beings, animals. The physical energy and the mental energy, or the physical energy and the consciousness, they meet and they interact with each other. And when they interact with each other, they become a person or they become an animal. We become alive. So they are related to each other, they depend upon each other, and they interact with each other, the body and the mind. So if we look at the mind, then we can divide the mind into three. There is a gross mind, a subtle mind, and a most subtle mind, or extremely subtle mind. So the gross mind refers to the 5 sensory consciousnesses that we use every day, everything that we see, hear, taste, touch, feel, smell. That is the coarse mind, or the gross mind. We use it every day, constantly. And then there is a subtle consciousness, which includes things like the more subtle layers of our ego, or the self-grasping mind. It also has deep-seated beliefs that we intuitively hold on to. So when we meditate, we try to let go of these, the coarse consciousness, and connect with the subtle consciousness. The subtle mind is more difficult to connect with than the coarse mind, because I think it is more difficult to feel, if we think about how do I discover my true nature, I can also say, how do I discover my subtle mind? What is that? What do I need to do in order to connect with my subtle mind? And what happens in my body when I connect with my subtle mind? And how does it feel when I connect with my subtle mind? So the quality of the energy of the subtle mind, what I feel, is more subtle, right? And because of that, we can't see it so clearly or understand it so clearly. And so the most subtle mind, or the extremely subtle mind, is the mind that manifests only at the time of death. The extremely subtle mind is that pure mind, pure from the beginning. Its essence is pure. I know that highly realized meditators, they do manifest that subtle mind only also in meditation, or they at least mimic that process. But for us ordinary beings, that subtle mind doesn't manifest in daily life, only at the time of death. But it is there, and it is very good to know that it is there, because it is there, we have this potential to develop ourselves. So how do these three levels work? The gross mind is so busy every day with everything that we feel and hear and see, and the coarse thinking, I think, is also part of the gross mind, and it obscures the subtle mind. So if we want to connect with the subtle mind, we first have to calm down. We have to quieten the coarse mind. Otherwise, it's nothing to see. The subtle mind cannot let you know anything if the coarse mind is constantly chatting. So in order to give the subtle mind a chance to speak to us, for us to listen to the subtle mind, we need to calm down the gross mind. And so that is why when we meditate, we close our eyes so that the visual consciousness is not active anymore. We try to be in a quiet place. We try to make sure that the body feels comfortable, that we feel warm enough, that we not feel too cold, too warm. Anything that agitates the mind, we try to avoid that. So although the gross mind can be very loud, it actually has not much strength. It doesn't have a lot of power. It can understand certain things, but relatively, compared to the subtle mind, it is actually a very weak mind. And I thought maybe it is like a loud child, or like a bully, making a lot of noise, but when it comes to it, they have not much strength. The subtle mind is much more powerful. And so it has much more power to understand things and to comprehend things, to penetrate the essence of what is said, the essence of the meaning. So when you go in deep concentration or in deep meditation, maybe you have that experience that sometimes you suddenly have this insight and you get it. I get it. I see it. That is penetrative. I'm not sure if I can call that penetrative insight, but it is a kind of penetrative insight. You suddenly see it. And you don't see just one thing. You see a whole thing, a whole range of things becomes clear in one moment. That's the power of the subtle mind. The coarse mind is not able to do anything like that. Right? The coarse mind thinks linear, one piece by one piece, but doesn't have this insight capacity. So that's the mind. Mind has three levels. We can say the same thing about the body. The body also has three levels: the coarse level, the subtle level, and the most subtle level. So the gross body or the coarse body is the body that we can see, right? With the arms and the legs and the heart and the lungs and the arteries and the blood, and that's the coarse body. The subtle body, you cannot see that with your eyes, with ordinary eyes. It refers to the chakras, the channels, and the drops. And so when we start meditating, we start connecting with these more subtle energies of the subtle body. And the most subtle body refers to the most subtle wind. So we had a most subtle mind, and now we have a most subtle wind. And these two, they are always together. They are one entity. They cannot separate from each other. The mind is the aspect that directs where that entity is going to. and the wind element is what makes it move. So the way we function at the moment is that the wind goes wherever it goes and the mind follows the wind. But what we try to do in meditation and by developing our mind, we try to get the control that the mind directs the wind energy. The mind directs where the body is going. The mind directs where the energy is going. Right? Like sometimes they compare it with the rider on the horse. Our horses are a bit wild, out of control. They run wherever they want to go and we follow the horse. But what you want to do, you want to tame the horse so that you are in control and you determine where the horse is going. You still go together with the horse and you love the horse and you take good care of the horse. But it's very clear who is in control. So we have said the nature of the mind is clean, clear. But in that mind, thoughts and feelings arise. And so our mind, when we think about our mind, we can have the feeling, oh, my mind is so cluttered and there is so much going on in my mind and my mind is not at all clean, clear and it is so busy and it feels so tight and it feels so heavy. But whatever arises in the mind, all your thoughts, all your feelings, all your emotions, they have the same nature of the mind in that they are all clear and knowing by nature. They are all like space. Right? They feel so real. Sometimes we have the feeling that we are carrying reality itself in our mind. Everything of reality. You know, we take our work home. What does it mean? We take our work home. We are thinking so strong about our work that we have the feeling that work is right here, as if it exists, as if we can see it. But the thought of work that gives us the feeling that work is here, that thought is like space. That thought has no essence in and of itself. Or I could say that essence of the thought is clear and knowing. Even all the negative thoughts, even all the heavy thoughts, even all the depressions, even all that is clear and knowing by nature. So we have a main mind, which is clear and knowing by nature. And within that mind, thoughts arise, feelings arise, emotions arise, and they have all the same nature of the mind. They are also clear and knowing by nature. The mind itself has no characteristics of its own. A characteristic would mean mind has a color, mind has a weight, mind has, some certain qualities that we can touch. But mind has nothing like that. No qualities in and of itself. Just like space, there are no qualities in space. What makes a space the way it looks like is what we put in the space. Right? If we have nice things to put in our space, that feels very different than when we have a lot of clutter that we don't like. So same with the mind. The mind itself has no characteristics, but how the mind looks like depends upon what arises in the mind. And so the mind reflects, it reflects objects in a way that suits or that is in accordance with our karma. So the mind just reflects, but whatever is reflected in the mind, there is nothing that is in the nature of the mind, that is of the nature of the mind. So when I have delusions arise in my mind, when I have strong images arising in my mind, when I have, even if it is strong anger, even if it is deep depression, whatever arises in the mind can never penetrate the nature of our mind, can never even touch the nature of our mind. So we can think about the blue sky and then the clouds that are in the blue sky. These clouds never touch the nature of the sky. Even if the clouds pervade the whole sky, even for days, and sometimes we cannot even remember how the blue sky looks like, especially when you are from Holland, right? Sometimes days and days and days, and at the moment it's here also quite cloudy for days. It's almost you cannot remember that there is a blue sky, but when the blue sky comes, you know these clouds have not touched the blue sky. There has nothing changed in the blue sky. The sky is still the same sky. In the same way, whatever delusions arise in the mind, they cannot touch our nature. They cannot touch the nature of the mind. Sometimes that pure nature of the mind is compared to a diamond, and at the moment this diamond is covered up with dirt or mud. And so no matter how much dirt is around the diamond, that dirt cannot touch the nature of the diamond. And so when we walk outside and we stumble on what we think is a stone covered with mud, we might think, oh, bloody stone, and we throw it away. But then if there is somebody with us and he said, no, there are diamonds here, you should take it home and clean it. And so then when we do that, we find a diamond within that mud. And the diamond is not touched by anything that was outside of it, not touched by the mud. So the fundamental nature of consciousness is pure, but it is covered by a blanket or by, sometimes it is said, a veil of contaminated conceptions and delusions. Right? Contaminated means not in accordance with reality, or stained by the delusions, stained by the self-grasping mind. And so due to this, at the moment, we are far from reality. We are far from the reality of ourselves and the reality of all that exists. But because the nature of a consciousness is pure, there is no reason to surrender to our current situation and say, well, that's just the way I am. I always was like that. And yes, I tried to change, but it didn't work. So, this is just what I have to accept. This is just what it is. You don't have to do that. We can develop our mind. Every one of us can develop our mind all the way up to enlightenment. There are no limitations to our potential for good qualities. And while developing these good qualities, we purify our mind from the contaminated conceptions and the disturbing emotions. And then when we do that, whatever we are holding on to now, whatever is obscuring or clouding our mind right now, will slowly, slowly disappear, uncovering our true nature. So that's what we're going to do a little bit this week, these coming 2 weeks. And we have some time for question and answering if you have questions. And I think Pema likes to do that with the mic, isn't it, Pema?
Whatever you prefer, Venerable.
Yeah, people can ask questions if they like. If you prefer the chat, you can also write the question in the chat.
Yes, anybody has any question, you can either write or raise your hand so that I can unmute you.
Can't have been so clear. B has a question.
B?
B.
Okay, just give me a second. I'll unmute her. B.
Okay. Yeah. This is more on the theoretical side. I kind of want to get it out of the way and address it as you think is appropriate. If it's not, we don't have to talk about it. I just recently pay attention to what was being taught in Shantideva's chapter 9, Bodhisattva Way of Life.
Mm-hmm.
There's an argument against Rangrig. And in the process of doing that, our own system, that's Shantideva, and I understood the same argument was also made in Nagarjuna, that mind cannot see itself. And the analogy they give is that the knife cannot cut itself.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, what it is that we are trying to do here, trying to see our own nature.
Yeah. So when it says mind or a knife cannot cut itself, mind cannot see itself, what it is doing is Prasangika system is refuting self-cognizers.
Yeah, I understood that that's what they are doing, but putting that aside.
No. So no. Hear me out, because you also asked that question.
Yes.
Group, right? And I thought about answering that, but so what is a self-cognizer? A self-cognizer is a consciousness that can see itself, and this is what the lower schools say. So that means that my visual consciousness, for instance, I see an object with my eye consciousness, then part of that eye consciousness sees that eye consciousness and realizes what it is, realizes the consciousness itself. So the eye consciousness realizes its object, and then the self-cognizer, which is part of the eye consciousness, realizes the eye consciousness. So Prasangika says this is not possible. This is not the way that seeing the mind, seeing your own mind, how that works. So talking about self-cognizers is looking for an explanation that we can observe our own mind. And Prasangika says you cannot do that with self-cognizers because that's an impossibility.
I'm not interested in refuting self-cognizer. I'm more interested in our own system saying that our mind cannot see itself. And put aside the eye consciousness, what about our subtle mind, our mental consciousness?
So you have to, what you read, you cannot put that in the whole perspective of the Prasangika. That is only referred to the self-cognizers. Prasangika doesn't refute that you can see your own mind.
So Prasangika does say that we can see our own mind?
Of course. Of course, because the mind has many different aspects and many different parts.
Okay, all right.
And you can focus on your own mind. You can have one mental consciousness that is observing another mental consciousness, or that is observing. I can observe my own thoughts, right?
Okay, all right. That's what I was looking for. Thank you so much.
That only applies to the self-cognizers, not to the rest.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. There's a question: process for purification of the mind. Are we going to do that? We will. Well, not in the terms of, I had not planned to do anything like Vajrasattva practice or prostrations, which are practices that are used to purify the mind. But the way we interact with the mind, the way when we are trying to discover our true nature, we can apply many techniques that are working as an antidote to the habits that we have at the moment. And that in itself can help to purify the mind. That in itself purifies the mind. When my attachment keeps arising in the mind, what makes that I create karma is that I follow that attachment. But when I start observing my attachment, my mind, that attachment becomes weaker and weaker and weaker, and at a certain point it gets purified. So in that regard, we do purifying practices. A simple question, can you explain what consciousness is? Is consciousness different from the mind? So in Buddhism, mind, consciousness, and awareness are synonymous. They are referring to the same thing, and they are just used in different contexts. When I talk about the mind, I'm talking about that which is clear and knowing. When I talk about awareness, I'm talking about that which is aware, but it is the mind that is aware. But I'm talking more about the function of being aware. When I talk about consciousness, I'm not sure what the definition is of consciousness. I think that is what is aware. But in general, they are synonymous. They're just used in different contexts. I would use consciousness when I mean something specific, like your eye consciousness, or when I refer to the thoughts as your mental consciousness, or yeah. Is that clear enough? Okay.
There is Suhas, Venerable Suhas has a question, I think. Suhas, please unmute yourself to ask.
Yes, hi. Am I audible? Ma'am, I would just like to. You were talking about wind and energy, like the rider and the horse. Could you please that the wind element directs it? I apologize for asking you to repeat again, but I was so mystified I couldn't understand.
Right. So I was talking about the extremely subtle wind and the extremely subtle mind. The wind energy is the most subtle body. And then we have the extremely subtle mind. And I said these two are one entity. They are always together. They cannot separate from each other. The extremely subtle wind is like the horse. It is what moves the mind. And the extremely subtle mind is that what directs the whole entity. That what directs the wind, what directs the mind. No, yeah. So they both go together always. One is directing and one is moving. Two different functions. Is that clear?
Thank you.
Okay.
I think that's all. But there's no other question. Anybody has any questions?
Dan.
Yeah.
Dan has a question, Pema. She's trying to unmute you, Dan. Just give her a sec.
Okay.
Good evening, Venerable Jamyang. How are you?
Dan.
Hello. I'm very happy to join this course. I have a question about the subtle wind. Does it reside anywhere in the body?
I wouldn't separate the extremely subtle wind or the subtle wind.
Well, the extremely subtle wind.
So the extremely subtle wind is always together with the extremely subtle mind, and that is seated at the heart.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So the subtle wind, there is a question about the subtle wind. Where is the subtle wind moving? The subtle wind, when they are discussed in the text, they are divided into 5 different subtle winds that all have their own specific function. For instance, there is an all-pervasive wind that helps to create movement, or that is responsible for the movement in the whole blood system and the whole body. There is a subtle wind that is responsible for the digestion. There is one that is responsible for the elimination. So we have 5 different subtle winds that can be distinguished, and they are moving through the whole body. They all do their own thing.
Are those subtle winds the same as, say, in Chinese medicine would call qi?
I think so.
But
You don't want to mix 2 systems with each other, but I do think that is you can call that qi.
Okay.
Yeah. What happens to the subtle wind if you die? So when you die, the subtle winds, they start to dissolve into each other. So one is more coarse than the other. One is more in the periphery of the body than the other. And so they dissolve into each other. During the death process, one subtle wind dissolves, then the next subtle wind dissolves into the other subtle winds. And then eventually all the winds dissolve into the most subtle wind at the heart. And when it is there, you realize, no, you don't realize, the clear light of mind manifests. And then after that, your extremely subtle mind and subtle body leave the body and move on.
Is that right? That when you die, I've heard that it leaves the crown of the head, or it leaves.
Not necessarily.
No. Yeah.
No.
Thank you.
So when you study the subtle winds, you can look into either Tibetan medicine or also Ayurveda, and it is also discussed within the tantric practices. So that extremely subtle mind that never dies, that never dissolves, that is just as your extremely subtle mind, they cannot divide any further. Okay.
And it's uncreated. It always existed.
That's, yes. I mean, now you're going a little bit.
Too far.
You would have to say that, or I could say it is created in each moment. Right? I cannot say it is impermanent. It's hard to say it has never been created. But it has always existed. All right.
Thank you.
Is everyone good? You want to move to the meditation? Yeah. Okay, people are ready for the meditation. So I would like to do a meditation on the clarity of the mind, right? We have discussed that quality of the mind. The mind is clear and knowing. And then what we can try to do is to see if we can connect with that quality of that aspect of the mind. Right? That's why I think it can be useful to do this meditation. So in order to do that, make sure that you sit comfortable. Somehow assume that you all know how to meditate. But if you don't, then having a straight back is the most important thing in your meditation. we would like the energies to move freely through the spine, up and down. So a straight back is very helpful for that. And at the same time, we want our back and our shoulders to be relaxed. Relaxation helps the subtle energies to move. So your back is straight, your shoulders are relaxed, your arms are relaxed. You can put the right hand on top of the left in the formal meditation posture, or you can also, if that feels more comfortable, have your hands in your lap or on your knees, whatever works for you. Your eyes are half closed, half opened. If it disturbs the mind too much to have them a little bit open, you can just close your eyes. And then breathe naturally. Bringing your body in a posture that is good for meditation is already part of the meditation. Going through all the points in the body brings the mind to the body. And due to that, the mind is calmed naturally. Delusions subside naturally. I'm sorry, there's a power cut here. So I think my phone might be able to take care of this. So you had a good chance to be with your body, to observe your breath. And before we start the meditation, we can breathe in deep through the nostrils, bringing the air down to the stomach, holding it for a moment, and then exhaling slowly and gently through your pursed lips. Then observe your breath without thinking, which means observe your breath without commenting. The mind is that which is clear and knowing. Your consciousness or your mind is also whatever you are experiencing at the moment. All the sensations in your body, your thoughts, your feelings, your perceptions of sounds, and so forth. All of that is also mind. And mind is also the space in which these experiences arise. The nature of the mind is clear or clarity. The nature of the mind is without form or color. We can't see it or touch it. It is like space, pure awareness. Focus your attention on this clear, pure nature of the mind. When we focus on the space-like nature of mind itself, we create a space in which we allow our thoughts and feelings to arise. When we focus on the space-like nature of mind itself, our thoughts and feelings can arise. And when they can fully arise, they naturally dissolve back into the mind. We don't push away any thought or feeling, with the knowledge that thoughts and feelings in and of themselves are not bad. even negative thoughts and feelings are not something that we need to suppress. They are just thoughts and feelings. By allowing them to completely arise, we created conditions that they can dissolve back into the mind. By doing this, that particular thought or feeling is exhausted and cannot arise again in the future. Focus your attention on the clear, pure nature of the mind, allowing thoughts and feelings to arise. We also don't follow the thoughts and feelings with the knowledge that pleasure and pleasant thoughts are not good by nature. For us, they appear to be good, but in their nature is nothing that is inherently good. When we try to hold on to these pleasant thoughts and feelings, not allowing them to dissolve back into the mind, that is the way that we pursue our happiness. We want more. We want it again. Be aware of that tendency in your mind. Following pleasant feelings is the nature of attachment, is the function of attachment. Attachment tries to hold on to the pleasant feelings so that they cannot arise to the maximum, so that they therefore cannot dissolve back into the mind. Then contemplate that that is a cause of suffering, holding on to. So we allow pleasant feelings and thoughts to arise, and we enjoy them fully, but we don't cling to them. We allow them to dissolve back into the mind. Keep your focus on the clear, pure nature of the mind, in which thoughts and feelings arise and then dissolve back to the mind. So we said that the nature of our experiences is also clarity. Their nature is also clear and knowing. Our thoughts, our feelings and emotions have no form or color. We can't see them or touch them. They are like space, pure awareness. Focus on your feelings and think that their nature is clear and knowing. Pleasant feelings and unpleasant feelings have in common that they are like space. They are pure by nature. Focus on that nature. Then observe your thoughts. Also, the nature of your thoughts is clear and knowing, like space. So while observing your thoughts arising in the mind, dissolving back into the mind, contemplate their nature. Thoughts are like space. Feelings, thoughts, emotions, disturbing emotions will arise in the mind. And we do not try to stop them. Sometimes we want to stop that mind. Don't think so much, don't feel so much, don't react so much. But in Buddhism, we don't try to stop them. That's not the purpose of the meditation. What we try to do is not to engage with them. When they arise, we know that they are deceptive. We don't want to go in a fight with them and try to push them away or try to hold on to them. We just observe their nature. They are like anything else that arises in the mind. Nothing to be worried about. The mind itself is clear by nature, and whatever arises in the mind is also clear by nature, without any substance. Simply observe that clear nature, which is like infinite empty space. and rest your mind in that nature. By meditating on the space-like nature of the mind becomes more light. Light in the sense that it illuminates. It is like an inner light that enables us to see things more clearly. A light that dispels the darkness of ignorance. And the mind can also become more light in the sense of less heavy. When we let go of our thoughts, our delusions, whatever arises in the mind, we get some space from that heaviness. We feel more light. And now at the conclusion of this meditation, bring your awareness back to your body. Connect to your body. Feel your body, your limbs, your back, your stomach, your head. You can move a little bit your hands, your feet, grounding in your body. And when you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes. Thank you very much for being here. I'm sorry for the interruption, I hope. I'm not sure how the connection was after that, but we'll see. So we conclude this meditation and this session by dedicating all the positive energy that we have gathered during this session to the happiness and the welfare of all sentient beings. Thank you for being here. I hope to see you tomorrow. And so tomorrow we're going to talk about how we can create, maybe I should say, a suitable attitude towards ourselves so that that becomes a condition that works positive in discovering our own true nature. Okay. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Venerable. Thank you, everyone, and see you all tomorrow at same time, 4 p.m. Indian Standard Time. See you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Venerable Jamyang.
Welcome. You're welcome.